The Three Amigos is actually made up of three guys, all who retired early. I've been out of work for now 6 years. I think Dion is just over a year, and Matt's the whippersnapper at about 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
But I think we've all had time to learn stuff. I think retiring early is a sexy goal. It is something lots of people work for. But when you get to the other side, you learn things. And I think we have all learned stuff. Let's go to Matt first, since he is newest to retirement, and talk about anything he may have learned that maybe surprised him or whatnot. Matt, what do you got?
No structure to your day works in the really very beginning. Otherwise, you will never get anything done. I kind of realized I was like, I think it was probably so my first 2 weeks were on vacation with my family. I then came back. I had basically a month or two's worth of work to catch up on personally. So all that happened. Then I finally found myself in a Dion moment, probably like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I was like, oh my word, it's Friday. I've not actually gotten anything done, like really of substance. Like I've been to my projects a couple of times and I've done this. And while I thought it was kind of nice, I was like, okay, I think I found my equilibrium. This is where I feel uncomfortable. A little too little. And so it was, yeah, okay. I need to have a little bit more structure in my day.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's my biggest takeaway so far, kind of now, 4 months in.
Yeah.
That's my biggest takeaway so far. So you got to have a little bit of structure, make sure to carve out some office time because we still run
Yeah.
companies.
Right.
And what I wanted to do was make the time that I had that I wasn't doing something far higher quality. And the way that you do that is focus the time that you do need to take to do the work to make sure that that becomes more focused. And what's ironic is that Mike, you and I spent our entire careers doing that. And
Yes.
so that was the first thing that I was happy to give up in retirement and
Yeah.
realize, okay, that's actually a trait that I need to keep.
A little too far. A little too far. Pull it
Little,
back.
yeah,
Pull
a
it back.
little too much, a little too Dion, a little too Dion. Yeah.
Well, I remember
And he's the one in front of sheetrock that's not mud and taped. Yeah.
exactly. I remember
Poetry.
Dion dropped this on me one time. He says, once you really get in the groove, it really boils down to what is the one thing you're going to do that day, right? It's about accomplishing one thing. And first time he told me that, I'm like, I don't see it. But now I get it. Dion is usually right. Sometimes it just takes me time to figure it out. Dion, what's
Yeah.
something you've learned now, 1 year into this retirement thing?
So I recently did a video on three things I learned, and I'm gonna try to cover three different things. And you touched on one of them. Before I retired, I took a couple of years with my brother, and we took 1 month trips, right? To just get used to what is this like if you don't have such a tight return on a vacation, which I hadn't taken for 8 years. And then I started doing a month. And the first week we were in, Colombia or Thailand or Portugal or wherever we were going, we would do everything that we could find online. These are the things you want to do when you're in this country or learn this part of the culture. And that would take a week and a half, and then we have several weeks left.
Hmm.
And we decided, so my brother and I kind of did this together. What is the one thing we want to do tomorrow?
Hmm.
Let's put that
Yeah.
on the list. This is the thing we're doing. And then everything else that happens can be random as to, is it a nap day? Is it a day where you get 15 things done that you weren't even sure you wanted to do? And you're much happier when you do what comes up that day, as long as you accomplish that one thing. So
Mhm.
now I'm coming up on 2 years retired here soon, and I have learned that it's not always one thing every day, but those days tend to be the best. Where Matt wanted a little more structure, I think if you have the honeydew or the to-do list of these are the things I want to get done this week, and then
Mm.
you figure out the day most likely to do it, then your schedule, your whole week will feel like you've accomplished something at the end, even though you're happier, less tired, healthier, and everyone around you is going to appreciate it.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. The biggest thing that I learned in retiring early is I think I've said this before, but it really hits me hard. Is you got to have a plan. I think the things that you guys did right, certainly much better than me, is you kind of had a vision for it, it was coming. Now both of you had moments where it happened, but you both knew it was on the horizon. So you had been building and planning for it for years. And I highly encourage, if you're Gen X or Boomer and you think retirement's coming in the near future could be, 2 to 5 years. right? Start planning for that now. Start building something now that brings joy. I didn't have that, and it almost made me go back to work. I mean, that complete failure, right? You got financial freedom and you go back to work because you can't find your joy. Man, don't do that. Don't do that. Matt, you got another surprise being out 4 months?
Um, I thought when somebody would bring me an offer, I thought that I would at least take the conversation and listen.
Mm.
And I was like, I had another Dion moment. I was like, go away.
I'm good.
They're like, are you sure? And I was like, I am more than positive. And if you ask me again, I'm going to block you.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it. I don't care. I
Yeah.
just don't care. I do not want to set foot in a plane for business, for real business ever again. I don't want reduction in force meetings. I don't
Yeah.
want heavy
Yeah.
growth meetings. Like we know that we're headed, you study the consumer, you know we're headed for a really rough spot in the next year to 2 years.
Yep.
And you know, because we were all in leadership, that meant reduction in force meetings.
Oh,
And
the
these are
worst,
things,
worst
right?
days of my life.
Worst, absolute worst parts. A firing, I love because I'm letting somebody go back into the wild, do what they should be doing because they clearly shouldn't be here. And they're going
Right.
to be happier somewhere else. A reduction in force, I hate because that is almost always based on bad decisions being made at the top of the food chain and then poor execution by the next tier down and not proper processes and not proper, target goals and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, trying to overgrow the business and just all these silly things. So for me, it was, recognizing that I thought it was a little bit like I dropped it cold. I'm not going back to corporate America.
Right.
Call me tomorrow, offer me a 7-figure a year contract. I'm not going back to corporate. I don't care. Don't care.
Yeah.
Don't have any interest in it. I can impact far more people doing what I do the way that I do it here now, small business, than I could ever in that role.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Dion, what's another lesson you've learned in a couple of years?
So just on Matt's here, I think a lot of industries are like that. So running the CDL school for the last 10 years, one of the harder things to teach anybody in a management position was it's pretty easy to look at the schedule and figure out coverage and figure out who's going to work overtime. It sucks to look at the schedule and say, hey, you're going to work 4 days next week, just to
Right.
anybody. So it's the same, I think, in any industry right there.
It
The
is.
thing that I learned that I don't think people are ready for, and because I've had this experience twice now in my life. And the first time I thought, oh, that was great. It'll probably never happen again. When it happened the second time, it was kind of shocking. I left law enforcement in 2008 outside of my control. There was a recession, and everybody knows when there's a recession, there's no more crime, so we don't need cops anymore. And I got laid off with a bunch of other qualified officers. And I started teaching at a CDL school, a job I ended up really liking. And my daughter came to me, and she was a teenager at the time. And I don't tear up often, but something got in my eye that day. She gave me this huge hug and she said, I'm so happy you're not a cop anymore because you come home in such a good mood.
Mm.
I hadn't realized being in law enforcement, as much as you try to hang it up at the door when you come home, you can't. Well, then I retired in 2022 and I've had several people close to me, like close personal relationships go, you're a totally different person. Like be ready for the change in you when you don't have a schedule, you don't have work expectations, you don't have coworkers, agencies, regulations you have to follow, times of year you have to think of, holidays to plan for because that's the one day you're going to get something. And all of a sudden the whole world opens to you and you're like that sophomore on summer vacation that doesn't have an end date.
Yeah.
And the whole world, you're just happier all the time. Yeah, you can still get upset, you can still get angry, but it lasts a fraction of the time that it would when you had all of the stress that came that you might not even know you have right now.
Yeah, I mean, the greatest example for me on that is actually looking at the lumberjack 2 or 3 weeks after he retired. Way younger. Just like what happened? You go get some surgery or something? It was
Yeah, I got a French cyst removed.
it's if you guys don't know what that means, his company got bought by a French firm and he wasn't enjoying it.
He's
Um,
not.
not enjoying it. Yeah, you know what? The next one for me is, you still have 24 hours in the day. Right? That doesn't change. And you kind of where you guys were going with the first one, you have to figure out how you want to use your day. And again, you are who you are, right? Dion, you talk about all the time, you don't really have a sleep schedule, right? You go to bed or you sleep when you're tired. I couldn't do that, right? I get tired at 10 and I'm up at 5:30 or 6. That's just who I am. Never had an alarm clock. It's just weird. So I had to structure my day, a couple hours, for this channel 5 days a week. And then I go home, we go out and eat. And then the afternoon is my happy time to do whatever the heck we want. So it's, you've got to, you've got to have some of that structure. It's not all bonbons and playing golf, right? That's what I thought retirement was going to be is, I just go out and play all the time. That's, that's not what it's like, at least when you're in your 40s. Maybe it is when you're 70. But retiring early, you still have a lot of energy and passion and drive. So I had to find a way to structure my day for sure. Matt, you got one last one? Go around one more time.
I think just the quality of everything that you get to do is better. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is rushed. It's like I would say to my son Samuel, because we now literally play hockey every day after he gets home from school.
Hmm.
So we play hockey every single day, and except for the last few days because I have pneumonia. But we play hockey every single day, and so it's really fun watching him grow, watching him get better, looking forward to that time. But he's just like, "Oh yeah, Dad, we probably got to go inside." I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Well, we don't. We
Yeah,
don't.
no, yeah,
We can
trust
just
me.
keep on going." And
That's
so it not always having to be like, oh, not always having to be somewhere else, let you be where you are better. And so that's the focus. Be more in your moment, be more in your time, be more in that time where, I'm playing with my kids or I'm talking to my wife or I'm talking to my friends. I don't have to have the 17 things behind my, in the back of my head going, all right, I got to travel next week. I got to do 17 stops. I got to do, 5 presentations. We have to get the marketing campaigns going for Q1 and Q2, none of that stuff. And so
yeah.
it really being retired, um, get focused on being able to be in the moment better. And admittedly, it's like all the gurus on TV that talk about it. Oh yeah, be in the moment, dude. How big is the company that you're running right now?
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say. And how many people are depending on jobs? It's
Yeah.
tough because
Yeah.
people in those leadership positions can handle the pressure, but it is the weight of the world in your shoulders because you're providing food for 50, 70, 100, 200, 300 families
But
and everything that impacts. And so when you don't have that job, when you don't have that responsibility anymore, you have to turn your focus to being, how do I be laser focused in this moment and just really soak up all that this moment is? And so I wouldn't say that I get more time. I get a little bit more time with my kids now because I always made time a priority with them, but I get better time with my kids now.
better. I love that. I love that. Dion, what's your final one?
My final one, I'm going to cheat and I'm going to make an amalgamation of 2 from my video the other day because I think this can actually help a lot of people and maybe even help Matt.
Like
Ready?
it.
So a lot of us are thinking, I can't retire early because my identity is tied up in my work and the coworkers that I have a work wife, I have this family that I spend time with that I care about and I want to do really well. That's BS.
Mm.
And it's all in your head
Mhm.
because, and here's the reason. If somebody at your company, at anybody's company watching the video, meets a stranger and they go, because we're humans, what do? We want to break the ice, get the conversation going. This is how you interact. We go, what do you do? It's kind of one of the first questions. It lets somebody talk about themselves, which is good. We get to learn something, but it also subconsciously gives us that socioeconomic scale of, are they more successful than me? Can I help them? Where are we at on this, right? Your coworkers can meet a stranger and ask that question or answer that question. But when we retired, we said with our actions, which are louder than words, what you do and what that company does wasn't good enough for me. I want to go do more. More could be nothing. More could be helping more people. It could be doing something different. It could be retiring or changing jobs. But when you left, you become, and here's the phrase, worse than a stranger to the
Mm.
people you worked with.
Mhm.
So then, and this is why I was going to cheat and make it 2, you go out and you meet strangers. You're an outsider. People ask that question, what do? You say, I'm retired, you'll get you're too young. You'll get, oh, so you just goof off all day. You'll get anything but something that they can relate to for the vast majority, because 0.08% of people reach financial freedom. So if you've
Wow.
reached financial freedom, and that's from Jaspreet Singh from Minority Mindset, and Chester clarified because I thought it was like 1%, but that's not very many people that you're going to meet and interact with that way. So you're an outsider. So the solution is you're not going to have your coworkers. I'm sorry, they're gone.
Yep.
You're not going to have strangers. I'm sorry, they're never going to be there. You need to find your pack. Who are
Yeah.
the people who can relate to you, who understand, who are in my local sphere here? I mean, so Millennial Mike, everybody knows we're actually literally hanging out today. We're going down to the Seattle waterfront to do man on the street interview questions. But we have Curtis and Josh and Dave and people that are meeting us through YouTube that I can reach out to and say, hey, here's the closet I made. It turns a 1 bedroom with a den into a 2 bedroom with a bathroom, upgrades the value of the property. And a stranger goes, that's really weird. The people in this sphere go, oh, that's awesome. Look what you did to what your cash flow is going to be, what you can refinance out. The whole alignment of thought happens by finding people who are thinking what you're doing. And when you retire, that might be repairing cars, carving wood, whatever it is, find your people. And I take that from Joe Kuhn. He retired on stocks, but he talks about having a retirement accountability group. People doing the same thing.
Yeah. That's awesome. I guess I'll cheat and make it two. So the first one I want to tell people is it's absolutely worth it, right? The work, the sacrifice, the years, the struggle, the hard days, the trials and tribulations, it's all worth it, right? It may not feel like it in the moment when you're cut with glass and you lost money here or there. It's worth it. And then to your point, Dion, about finding your tribe, that's a big deal, right? One of the things that you're going to figure out is, I mean, I'll just say it this way: none of who I would call my friends on February 1st, 2018, are my friends today, because we just don't see the world the same way, right? They're all still high strung sales guys doing what high sales strong, sales guys do. They're all out, for most of them, spending every penny they make. And now we're going into a recession, and those reduction notice. It's going to be ugly. And then what the sad thing is, they'll probably reach out to me and go, how'd you do it? Or how can you help me, or whatever. But yeah, definitely find your tribe. That's why I think if you're Gen X or baby boomer, you really should start building something now. Because if you could just find your tribe of 10, 15, 20, 30 people, get that accountability group, check in once a week with people going the same direction, it's just awesome. It's just such a good feeling. So, of
Can I have one more thing real quick, Mike?
course you can.
17 years I was at this company. 17. 70% of the people that were there, I hired. A lot of them. Touched a lot. And I stayed to make sure it transitioned. I stayed to make sure they all had jobs. I stayed to make sure that they were indoctrinated into the new company. I stayed to make sure that the new company saw their value. And since I left February 14th, 2024, 0 people have called me or emailed me or texted me. 0. So
I should have wrote down the date, because I think it was November we had this conversation, and I said, Matt,
yep.
6 months. I said 6 months after you retire, you're going to be shocked that. And to me, it was the only person who's reached out to me from the company that I ran for a decade, is when they see that I made a video making fun of them.
So, I mean,
hilarious.
I know, and that's the crazy thing. Like I thought Dion was right, but wrong. I figured he was like, generally speaking, I figured he was right. Generally speaking, I was like, yeah, they don't care. They don't care. They don't know what I did for them. They don't know that stuff. So generally speaking, I was like, I think Dion's right. But these close relationships of people that worked for me for a decade, that I had one that I promoted 3 times and went from a $40,000-$50,000 a year employee to a well into the 6 figures employee, massive platform, biggest group in the company, like, not heard from them. not reached out to me one time, not reached out to me once since I left on February 14th. So for me, I honestly, I think I'm probably a little bit bitter about it because I stayed for them, not for me, but a
Right.
little
Oh
bit.
yeah, I remember. Yeah.
But right, I stayed a little bit, and we talked a lot about that off camera. I depend on you guys a lot for that because you guys had both done it before I did it, and we're both leaders. And so I said, I want to make sure I do it right. I want to make sure I treat these guys right. I want to make sure that they're taken care of. I want to make sure that they're all good. And would I do it over again? I hope I wouldn't do it over again. But if you told me this story that 4 months ago, I might have done it differently. I might have been like, you know what? Work it out yourselves, guys. I made my spot. You work it out yourselves. But I think that I'm happy that I didn't know what this answer was then.
Mm.
But now walking away a little bit bitter about that piece. But quite frankly, what you were saying about the tribe, none of them ever could understand or fathom what I do on a daily basis now, or
Yeah.
what it took to make sure that I could do that at 46, because there were only two people in the company younger than me.
Yeah.
That was it. It was an older company that was all a bunch of rock stars. So, yeah, so you guys being part of that new tribe for me was game changing and helped me get through that transition and finally retire.
There you go. Again, folks, it is absolutely worth it. We've all been there. We've all been up the mountain. It is hard. It is slow. The first 5 years suck. All the things we tell you, but worth it. Dion, where can they find you?
They can find me right here on YouTube, being here for people like Matt. So if you're looking to retire, we're here for you.
It's all about people like Matt. Matt, where can they find you?
Elite winners that need some help in other areas of finding ways to relax. Dion's amazing at that because he's both. He was both. So, Lumberjack Landlord on YouTube and Instagram, live streams 11:30 a.m. on Sundays.
Very cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Ciao.